When I first started with Luke, we had a lot of aggressive behaviors. Like I said, he was putting holes in walls, he was throwing things, he was pulling knives. He actually hit me a few times, which is very uncharacteristic of him. And any demand that you placed on him that he didn't want to do, it didn't get done without a fight. When I had left their case, it was like a completely different kid. He loved seeing me in the morning. He would joke around with me. He was so happy all the time. And then you could tell him, like, we're going to do this today, and have a whole list of things for him to do. And he didn't have a problem doing any of it. So he was a completely different kid by the time we were done. My name is Tonia Gott. I'm a Board Certified Behavioral Analyst with Centuria Healthcare. I work in ABA therapy. So ABA therapy in a nutshell is children on the autism spectrum having one-on-one therapy with a behavioral therapist. We work on problem behaviors, aggression, self-injurious behaviors. We work on non-compliance. We work on any skill that the parent wants them to gain that they basically can't help them with. So we'll come into the home and they will do it's called an initial assessment, and we'll test their skills. So we have different assessments that we use, and we test a variety of skills for the lower functioning kiddos, vocal imitation, following directions, motor imitation, requesting. We work on all of these things with our lower functioning kiddos. Luke is a very high functioning kiddo, which he worked on more of functional living skills. So he worked on morning routines and tolerating non-preferred activities, tolerating changes in his routine. He worked more on those functional life skills that are going to get him to be independent and be able to live on his own one day and go to college and get a job. As an RBT, and I was super excited because he was a Richmond case, and there's not many cases out this way, so super exciting. When I worked on his case, I didn't know of the behaviors that were going to happen. They just told me he was a male technician that needed morning hours, that needed help with homeschooling, and to assist with Jamie along with homeschooling and whatever else she needed. So when we started this case, he exhibited a lot of severe behaviors to start out. He wasn't used to demands being placed on him. He wasn't used to the follow through of demands, and he was used to kind of escaping demands that were placed on him, and he was access to his room, to a lot of preferred reinforcers over doing his schoolwork. So we had come up with a plan to get homeschooling to be the number one priority for him to be able to sit and attend and focus on his schoolwork. Probably a good 8 months it took us to get a structure in place for him. When we first started, we had 3 different supervisors on this case, so I was kind of the constant with him for the most part. I see him the most. I was one-on-one. We did 3 to 3.5 hour days for the most part, and then I would do a whole homeschooling day with them on Mondays, and we'd go in person at the church. So our days would consist of coming in. He would complete a morning routine, which was brushing his teeth, getting dressed, making his bed, taking the dog for a walk. And it took him quite a while to get into a routine of that. He had to set his own alarm. He had to get up. He had to eat breakfast. And we had behaviors along with this. There was days that it took him 45 minutes to get out of the bed. It took him an hour to walk the dog. It took him even longer to make his bed. But if that's what we did that day, then that's fine. We would wait him out, and when he completed them, he got positive praise for it. He got reinforced. We built on baby steps from that to building on school subjects. So once we got a morning routine down pat, then we went into a school format. He would start with computer work. He liked the computer. He liked the programs that were on the computer. So we start with things that are highly preferred first, which were probably those, and then we built upon that. He got reinforced for completing any amount of schoolwork, and then we came up with a token system to reinforce him being in school. So that way he knew if I completed so many activities, so many subjects, so many worksheets, he got access to something. We used a point system, and he got access to this treasure bin that he created. We went shopping. He picked out all these different treasures that he could earn throughout the week, and once he hit a certain number of points, he got to pick from this bin. Once we discovered this, it was kind of a breakthrough. He was really motivated to work for this bin and to gain access to the things in there. He picked out candy, cars, different toys, Legos. He had probably 30 different things in this bin that he loved because he picked them all out. We did have some struggles. Once one of our supervisors came in, she was new to this case, and when Luke started having meltdowns with things that he didn't want to do with school, he would often run into his room, and he used cars as a coping mechanism. He would play with his cars. It kind of resettled him, and then he would come back to the classroom to finish what he was doing. Our supervisor wanted to push him to see how far we had to push him to have a behavior further than just escaping to his room, because by simply allowing him to leave his schoolwork in like an explosive manner to go to his room, we wanted to change that we wanted to see how far he had to be pushed to almost have a behavior other than slamming himself in the room. So she followed him into the room and brought his worksheet in there, and at this point, he was really annoyed that we were like in his personal space. He was really upset that we were in there, went storming out of his room, went to the kitchen. When he went to the kitchen, we followed him into the kitchen. We saw the worksheet he had to complete, and he actually pulled out a knife that was about this big and pointed it at us, and we just kind of backed off. We're like, okay, we can be done now. And then Jamie came in and told him that she was going to call the cops if he didn't put it down. He followed, he listened, he put the knife down, he went back into the classroom, he finished his worksheet. So we knew not to push him to that point anymore because we didn't want the extreme behaviors of grabbing sharp utensils in the kitchen. But from that point, we kind of taught him to ask for a break. If he was getting too overwhelmed with work, we wanted him to ask for that break to go to his room. We didn't have a problem with him coping by himself, but we wanted him to ask in an appropriate manner. So that's kind of where we taught him to ask for breaks to go to his room. We've had other significant behaviors of punching holes in drywall, slamming doors shut, slamming the door open to create holes in drywall. He grabbed a giant pair of lawn scissors one time, and these were all just results of him trying to escape the work that he was presented, and these were the behaviors that resulted from it. We dealt with each one of them one by one. If he put holes in the wall, Jeff would make him patch the holes by himself. It would be after ABA time, but he'd have to go through and patch the holes. He said if you did the damage, you're going to fix it, which is fantastic. It's kind of what we do, but not as far as fixing drywall. But Jeff made him follow through with it, which was great. Let's see. He was on a medication called Strattera for a long time, and he was seeing a behavioral therapist as well, or just a therapist? Just a therapist. And we would go once a week to this therapist, I believe, and he would talk to her, and we would present like behavioral data to her as, okay, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing huge spikes during escape tasks. We're seeing huge spikes during the morning. And we'd present all this data to her, and she kind of dismissed it a lot. She didn't take it seriously. She didn't believe what we had to say. Jamie asked about like the medications, whether taking him off like was an option, things along those lines, and they didn't really respond well to it. So one day Jamie said, we're stopping this medication. We stopped the Strattera, and within a 2-week period, our behaviors had significantly decreased. Like there was no more aggression, no more holes in drywall, no more knives or scissor hedges, nothing like that. So there may have been a correlation with him taking that medication with his behaviors that he had. He was a little less focused once we got him off of that, because that did help him with his attention abilities. But we put him on, I think he went on Ritalin after that, and we actually had a medication training, so that way he knew to take his medication in the morning and the booster in the afternoon, and he would get rewarded for this. So we started very small. If you took your medication 2 days in a row in the morning, you got reinforced for it. And then once he would master these skills, we would build upon it, and he would go 3 days, then get reinforced, and then 4 days, and then you'd have to hold a whole week with getting reinforced for taking his medication. So we've always started with baby steps with him, very small things he would get rewarded for. Even if the behavior occurred, we would still reward him after the behavior. You want to reward them once they calm down and realize what they're supposed to be doing. That's where we put in positive reinforcement, and that's where we build skills on. So if we add something to it that he likes, so he loved cars. If we added cars to the situation, we're going to increase the behavior that he wants, because he's motivated to work for something. So we did this all over the place. Luke never wore jeans probably for the first year that I met him, and Jamie wanted him to wear jeans. So we cleaned out his whole closet, and we tried on clothes, which was really not okay with him. He would not change his clothes. Whatever he was in for the day, he was in. So we worked on changing clothes. We worked on trying on clothes and getting rid of everything that was too small for him. He hated this, but I had a lot of fun with it. And then we would go shopping. So we'd go to the mall, and he would refuse to try on jeans at the mall. He would pick out a few shirts every now and then we're like, he found the candy machine in the middle of the mall, and we told him if you tried on a pair of jeans, then we can go pick out whatever candy you want. Like we gave him 2 quarters. He was so excited. He tried on 4 pair of jeans that day, and then went downstairs and he had a whole handful of Skittles, and it was perfect for him. After he bought 1 pair of jeans, he didn't wear them for 2 weeks, and then one morning I came in and he was like just smiling ear to ear, and he had jeans on. I'm like, oh my God, you have jeans on. He's like, I know. And then took the dog for a walk like nothing ever happened. So from this point on, he's been wearing jeans all the time, according to Jamie. So he loves his jeans now. So that was a huge breakthrough for him, that even just putting on a simple pair of jeans is sometimes problematic, or changing your clothes. And we work through those barriers. With schoolwork, we would probably get through one subject a day for the first couple months. We would only do like reading or like writing a sentence, picking out the verbs. And Jamie was like, okay, we got to increase stuff. I'm like, we're not ready yet. So we finally started to increase. We would add little things at a time and add subjects that he didn't like, intermixed with the ones that he did like. So that way he was more motivated to do the subjects he liked. So we would start off with the ones that he didn't like first. He was allowed to take breaks at any time as long as he asked for them appropriately, and we taught him how to do this as well. And then he had a really hard time for a while with social interaction with kids. He likes to play by himself. He doesn't like people touching his toys. He doesn't like people in his room. He's very particular about where things go in his room, how things are organized. So part of his programming was for me to go in and touch his stuff. And for this, it was more of a toleration training. So that way, if I could do it and he came after me, that's one thing. I can handle the aggressive behaviors. We teach him replacement behaviors of asking him, please don't touch my things. And then this can transition and generalize to other people, mom, dad, sister, friends that come over. So we started very small with like me moving things in his room, whether it was his cars. I'd take one, put it on the opposite side of the room, take one, put it in the kitchen. And he'd realize it, and at first he would just take it and put it right back in his room. He wouldn't do anything. He would just kind of take it and run. And then we started to teach him to ask to put it away. So he would see his cars out of place. Can I please put that away? And sometimes we'd be like, no, not yet. Leave it for 5 more minutes, and then you can have it back. So he learned toleration training through us touching his things. We got up to the point where I could touch pretty much anything of his that was highly preferred. His Legos that he created, they're all Star Wars Legos. Like, it got to the point where I could touch those, move them. And before, if a kid had did this, he would have lost it. He would have started yelling at them. He would have taken them and probably moved them so that way nobody could touch them. But we got into the point where I could touch basically anything that I wanted of his, and he would have friends over and we would work on his friends touching his stuff. And it got to the point where he was okay with his friends touching it. He would play video games with his friends because that's one of the things they love to do. And it was always that he liked to pick the game, and he liked to be the number one player, and he got to pick everything about the game that was happening. So when I started with the video games, we would transition to the friend getting to pick the game, and then Luke controlled everything else. And then the friend got to pick the game and the character he wanted to be, and then Luke got to pick everything else. And then slowly transition to the friend being able to pick everything about the game, and Luke just had to go and play with him. There was times that Luke would be like, I'm not playing, and we would make him play. We're like, if they're going to play your game, you have to play theirs. So we would do that. We also played board games a lot to teach him how to interact with his sister. They didn't have a whole lot of positive reinforcement between them, positive relationship. It was a lot of sibling stuff, a lot of bickering, and don't touch my things, and I want to play this game, and there was no compromise between the two of them. So we worked a lot on sharing and playing board games together, taking turns. So we would work with Ellie, and Ellie would pick a game, and Luke would have to play with her, and then Luke would pick a game, and Ellie would play with him. A lot of the times we would kind of cheat at the games, so that way he would learn how to lose respectfully. We worked on good sportsmanship with games. He was not very good at losing for a while. He would get really upset, not want to play the game anymore, kind of break down and just kind of go in his room and not want to be by anybody for the rest of the day. So we worked on those skills of good sportsmanship and how to deal with losing. Like, you can still say good game, I don't want to play anymore, maybe we'll play again later. So we taught him appropriate skills to losing, which was super helpful for him. And I think he still carries those over to this day of how to manage these things. I know they play games in school, and even with a sister now, just from walking in the house today, there was no yelling, there was no bickering. Like, the two of them have come such a far way as siblings, as they can actually hang out together and not have a behavior every time they're talking and bickering and this like constant need to like nitpick at each other. They've come very far with that. So ABA, we come in and we basically help the parents and teach the parents how we can directly help them with behaviors. So we use a lot of positive reinforcement. This is where we use a stimulus, so we add something to the client to increase their behavior. So we can add in like a highly preferred item if they love like cars, like Luke. If we'll add that, he can earn it, And by him earning this, he's going to want to increase this behavior because he knows if I do this behavior, I can have access to this item. We also use a lot of differential reinforcement, which is you reinforce the behavior you want and then you ignore all the other behaviors. So you don't give any attention to these behaviors. We use extinction, which is where you provide positive praise to only the behavior that you want, and then you ignore everything else as well. So with extinction, if a kid is continuously, if a kid is continuously like screaming for he wants breakfast in the morning, and he's sitting there just yelling at you like, I want breakfast. We're gonna ignore that, and then once he asks appropriately that I want breakfast, absolutely, we're gonna give you whatever you want. You asked appropriately. We don't pay attention to the behavior that happened before that, but we pay attention to the right way to ask for what they want. ABA as a whole, I think every family could benefit from this 100%. My 4-year-old nephew, I use it on him all the time. We use it for potty training. We use it for like him asking for things. We use it for appropriate behaviors. I use it all day long. I could tell you I even use it on my fiance, never tell him these things, but it helps shape behaviors. Like if you don't want them to do something and you want to teach them the right way to do it, I'll be like, okay, if you want to go to the gym, let's go clean the room first. We're going to go put our laundry away. And that's as simple as ABA can be. First, we're going to do this, and then we can do this. So if they want access to something that they want, first we're going to do something that you don't like to gain access to that. So you can use it in everyday life. You can use it on your animals. You can use it on your kids, on your fiancés. I mean, you can use it basically in every aspect of life.